Well, hello from the Giant's Causeway on the north coast of Northern Ireland, where we have some incredible breaking news for you today. Disappear into a magical doorway within the rock face here at the Giant's Causeway.
A 20-ton basalt slab just slid open like a high-tech door inside Ireland's Giant's Causeway, revealing terrifying human-like figures that were not only glowing, but also radiating body heat. And the more eerie detail is that they had been buried for millions of years. This is the insane story of the moving stone door, a disturbing discovery that merged ancient Irish legends with modern horror, left scientists speechless, and forced the world to ask, what the hell has been sleeping beneath the Giant's Causeway all this time? More than just hexagons. Some people who have visited the Giant's Causeway might have, some way or another, called it a tourist trap for many reasons. Apart from being one of UNESCO's World Heritage Sites, it is famous for the 40,000 interlocking basalt columns that rise from the sea in perfect geometric patterns. Most people see a geological wonder, a relic from 60 million years of volcanic history. For others, the site represents something far different. The local Irish legend tells of a giant named Finn McCool who built this path as a bridge to reach a rival in Scotland. While an interesting tale, it sets the stage for a much larger conversation about impossible structures. While scientists talk about cooling lava, the sheer precision of these stones has always felt a bit too perfect. For decades, way before now, locals shared rumors about shifting stones and strange vibrations. These weren't ghost stories, but actual observations from people who spent their lives on these cliffs and noticed that something didn't quite add up. The 40,000 interlocked columns at the Giant's Causeway were one particular mystery. These hexagonal basalt columns looked so almost perfect that it seemed they were hand-laid, but that isn't the case. From the structure of it, they look like meticulously carved pillars and are the ultimate form of natural camouflage. If someone wanted to hide an entrance in plain sight, they wouldn't use a steel door or a wooden gate. They would use the very rock everyone is standing on. Archaeologists have always been fascinated by the depths beneath the causeway. Despite our modern technology, ground-penetrating radar often faces difficulties reaching the bottom of it for some reason that no one understands. Some think it's due to the density of the volcanic rock, which creates a massive blind spot, leaving a mystery right under our feet that no one on the planet has ever been able to fully map. This brings us to a change in the timeline. For years, the causeway was a static monument, a silent witness to history. People assumed it was as solid as the Earth itself, but all of it changed when a routine trip to the coast turned into a global event. What happens when the ground itself decides to move? A group of hikers was about to find out, capturing a moment that would break the internet. The viral footage. The footage hit social media in November of 2015, but somehow resurfaced again early in 2026. From the low-angle shot, the hiker captured the moment where a massive basalt slab, estimated to weigh at least 20 tons, pulled away from the wall. It didn't tumble down the cliffside in a messy landslide. Instead, it slid inward, and that was crazy. The timing of the event was eerie. Reports from witnesses throughout March and April claimed the door remained open for exactly 11 seconds. During that short window, the audio on the clip captured something even more unsettling than the visual. It was not the sound of stone cracking or earth crumbling. It was a deep, rhythmic, metallic, grinding noise. People who analyzed the sound later pointed out that it sounded like massive gears turning deep within the mountain. This was nothing like any natural geological process ever recorded at the site. By the end of the month, the video had racked up millions of views across every major social media platform. The moving stone door hashtag was trending globally, and people were obsessed. Everyone had a theory, ranging from hidden government bunkers to ancient technology, while many skeptics called it a clever ruse. Some people were genuinely puzzled. They noted that the movement of the stone was far too fluid to be a natural occurrence. There was no dust, no debris, and no jagged edges left behind. It was as if the cliff were designed to do exactly this from the very beginning. Initial reactions suggested that if this were a natural rockfall, the science wouldn't just add up. A slab that heavy doesn't slide back and then perfectly seal itself back into place without leaving some stones unturned. The internet was on fire with debate, and the footage was being looped on news stations worldwide. The movement of the stone was terrifying enough, but it was what the camera caught in the darkness of the chamber that truly sparked a global panic. According to the report, witnesses claimed the light from the phone cameras finally cut through the gloom, revealing a dark room that simply should not exist inside a volcanic cliff. The witness even described a small, perfectly smooth chamber having polished walls that look almost like glass, reflecting the dim light in a way that felt unnatural. Somehow, this light was able to capture strange-looking figures that, when zoomed in, looked like 7 upright, humanoid figures in a perfect circle encased in the stone. These figures were odd-looking and did not have the dull texture of stone or wood. Those who saw the footage described them as statues made of flesh and light. They seemed to glow with a faint, internal shimmer that made it hard to look directly at them. The most chilling part of the report came from a witness using either a drone or a high-end thermal camera. When the lens was pointed toward the opening, the screen didn't show anything. However, it was able to capture heat signatures because by some miracle, these figures were radiating heat. They were motionless, but by every thermal standard, they were alive. This discovery threw the scientific community into a loop because it defied everything science was about. How could something live deep inside a sealed rock for centuries without oxygen or sunlight? The encounter ended as quickly as it began. Just as one of the hikers moved closer to get a better shot, the figures appeared to react to the artificial light. Just as the 11-second window slammed shut, the massive basalt slab slid back into its original position, sealing the chamber perfectly. The grinding sound stopped, and the cliff face looked like solid rock once again. As the footage spread, the world demanded answers. Were these ancient guardians, or had we stumbled upon a literal gateway to another realm? The scientific speculation. Scientists and armchair experts immediately went to work trying to figure out how a 20-ton slab of rock could move similarly to a sliding glass door. Knowing how heavy it weighs, moving that much weight requires an incredible amount of power. Engineering experts pointed out that any conventional machinery would have left behind grease, scrap metal, or at least some scratch marks on the basalt. Instead, the video showed a surface so clean, it seemed as if the rocks were designed to fit together and move without friction. Some researchers looked for answers naturally. They suggested that rare pockets of steam or extreme tectonic pressure might have built up behind the cliff, creating a sliding door effect. But the problem with this theory is the precision. Natural pressure usually causes an explosion or a messy crumble, not a timed 11-second opening that seals back up perfectly. This led to a more radical idea. Some speculators started wondering if the causeway was something other than a natural formation. They suggested it could be a prehistoric terraforming project, an ancient piece of technology disguised as a coastline. The thermal radiation was another massive puzzle. If a chamber is sealed for centuries, it should be the same temperature as the surrounding rock. However, the heat signatures pointed to something inside that was generating its own energy. Without a visible power source, some theorists proposed the clockwork stone theory. This idea suggests that the entire causeway operates on a massive millennial cycle. It might only open when specific stars align, or when the Earth reaches a certain point in its orbit. It is a terrifying thought that we could be standing on a giant mystery that only awakes once every 1,000 years. If this were true, then it would mean the door didn't open because of a malfunction, but because it was simply time. While the world looked for scientific loopholes, Irish historians were looking at a different aspect, finding parallels in the dark folklore of the Emerald Isle in ancient manuscripts. Luckily, they saw a familiar pattern in the 7 figures found in the basalt chamber. Irish mythology speaks of the Tuatha De Danann, a race of godlike people who allegedly ruled Ireland before retreating into the earth. According to the stories, they never left the island, but they did retreat underneath the earth. This concept of moving doors on the side of a hill isn't exactly foreign. In fact, it is surprisingly a huge part of Celtic culture. They call these places the Shee, or fairy mounds. In these legends, A hillside that looks perfectly solid 1 minute can swing open the next. Over the centuries, there have been countless reports of portals appearing in solid rock across Ireland, only for the witnesses to turn around and find nothing but stone moments later. These accounts were often dismissed as hallucinations until the 2015 footage surfaced, matching these ancient descriptions almost perfectly. It's hard to ignore how significant the number 7 carries in these old texts. It frequently pops up when talking about ancient celestial guardians or even hidden knowledge. Having 7 figures in that chamber suggests a sense of order and protection. It makes the Giant's Causeway look less like a random rock formation and more like the ultimate gate. Even its position is food for thought, especially since it sits right on the edge of the Atlantic. Some think the path is a bridge between the land we know and the unreachable depths. For all we know, this mystery might have been trying to unveil itself for thousands of years, but because of technological limitations, it stayed hidden. But is it possible that our eyes are seeing monsters, whereas our ancestors saw something much more grounded and tangible? Ireland's true hidden depths. Stepping back from the viral videos for a moment, we need to look at why the internet is so ready to believe there is a secret entrance at the Giant's Causeway. The truth is, we are primed to believe it because Ireland's actual history is already defined by mind-bending, hidden chambers. Take Newgrange in the Boyne Valley. This Neolithic tomb stands as a masterclass in ancient engineering, built by people who managed to move stones weighing as much as modern cars without trucks or cranes. But Newgrange wasn't just built to be a stagnant tomb, it was built to hide a specific, engineered secret. Above the entrance sits the roof box, a small, precisely aligned opening. For 364 days a year, it does nothing. But during the winter solstice, the rising sun hits it at the exact right angle, shooting a 60-foot beam of light down a dark stone passage to illuminate the inner chamber. It is, quite literally, a mechanical door of light engineered by ancient minds. When you realize our ancestors could manipulate light and stone this way, the idea of a hidden door at the Causeway doesn't feel like sci-fi. It feels like a continuation of our past. This blurred line between myth and reality is exactly why modern discoveries constantly go viral. The ground beneath Ireland is actively proving that what is hidden doesn't stay hidden forever. Recently, researchers using airborne LiDAR technology scanned the landscape and uncovered dozens of massive stone monuments totally invisible to the naked eye. It seems the Irish earth behaves less like soil and more like a vault, preserving secrets we thought were lost to time. The most disturbing proof of this is the Cashel Man, a 4,000-year-old body swallowed by a peat bog and preserved so perfectly that his skin remains intact. When the real, peer-reviewed science keeps pulling intact tombs and perfectly preserved ancient men out of the earth, our expectations of reality shift. This is the massive gap that the viral Causeway footage exploits. It scratches a deep, psychological itch that has existed since our ancestors lived in caves. The desperate urge to believe that there is more to the world than what we see on the surface, and that a hidden treasure is always waiting just out of sight. We crave the mystery, and after weeks of intense online speculation, that craving was about to collide with reality as the investigation into the 20-ton door took a sharp turn. The anatomy of a hoax. The first major red flags didn't come from a science lab, but from the total lack of people on the ground. If a massive stone door really opened at a site as famous as the Giant's Causeway, organizations like the National Trust or Queen's University Belfast would have been on site within minutes. Instead, there were no official statements, no police cordons, and no academic reports. However, the intention behind the video felt misconstrued. The investigation eventually hit a wall that had nothing to do with science and everything to do with a public relations department. It turns out, the National Trust actually created this short clip that was intended to be a playful tourism campaign launched under the hashtag #NTSleepingGiant. All they wanted was to bring the myth of the giant Finn McCool to life for families visiting the Irish coast. The organizers aimed to make a geological site feel magical for children. Along with the digital video, the trust handed out physical maps and clues for a visitor scavenger hunt. The secret cave in the footage was a fun destination for families to hunt for during their morning walk. It was a light-hearted fairy tale promotion designed to boost tourism engagement. But what the creators never expected was that anyone would take it seriously. The real shock is how this innocent stunt from a decade ago resurfaced in 2026 with the original hashtags and intentions stripped away. Just like that, a family-friendly game was weaponized into a viral hoax to gain millions of views. So if the door wasn't real, why did millions of people, including news outlets, believe it? The massive explosion of AI tools in 2026 has completely changed the dynamics of the internet. It is now incredibly easy for almost anyone to create unverified footage that looks very real. In the past, you needed CGI as well as a huge budget to make a 20-ton rock look like it was sliding into a cliff. Now, sophisticated AI generative software handles the heavy lifting in a matter of seconds. The rise of these technological advancements has given rise to falsified videos. The psychology behind these videos is focused entirely on keeping you watching by combining a deep sense of mystery with what looks like immediate visual evidence. Adding something as intriguing as human figures hidden in the earth was the perfect recipe for clicks and engagement. This creates a dangerous feedback loop on social media, especially seeing how social media platforms are designed to prioritize anything that goes viral. The algorithm sees millions of people clicking on a mystery and starts pushing it to even more users across the world. This happens at lightning speed, so the truth usually cannot keep up. By the time the experts can release a debunking video, the original hoax has already reached every corner of the globe. The creators get their millions of views, and the world is left feeling confused about what is real. While the moving door might be a digital ghost, the real tragedy is what these hoaxes distract us from discovering. The truth at the Causeway. Back to the Giant's Causeway, which is way more interesting than any fake video. It seems to be something that has interested scientists for decades. They have mapped the area using everything from deep drills to seismic sensors, and what they did find wasn't a secret base or a hollow room. Instead, they discovered a solid mass of cooled magma that stretches deep into the earth. It is built from layers of ancient lava flows separated by interbasaltic beds, which are basically layers of red soil and ash trapped between volcanic events. There are indeed chambers along this coast, but they were carved by the Atlantic Ocean, not by engineers. Sea caves, like Port Coon Cave, are very real and very dangerous. You can only reach them by boat when the tide is exactly right. These caves are dark and atmospheric, but they do not have sliding doors or mechanical parts. They are cold, damp, and filled with the sound of crashing waves. So while the sliding door of the Giant's Causeway is a myth, it doesn't take away the fact that there are many mysteries that appeared to be myths but were actually true. A similar discovery is just like the history of the Spanish Armada, where in 1588 a ship called the Girona was wrecked right on these rocks. No one ever thought there would be hidden secrets until divers eventually found real gold coins and the actual remains of the sailors who lost their lives there. Now that's something that might seem untrue, but was actually true. The truth is that the Causeway is only a graveyard of volcanic activity. While the 2015 hoax was fake, it did remind us why we find this place so special. At the same time, it was also a warning. In a time where anyone can twist reality, we have to be our own detectives. The Giant's Causeway remains a place of total wonder, with or without a moving door. So, the next time you see a stone move on your screen, ask yourself, is it the Earth opening up or just the algorithm? What do you think about the reveal and the reaction to it? Let us know in the comments below. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss any of our videos. Thanks for watching.